the R's and the D's as I always got stuck with my tongue. Hi, Tamara. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah. And
Uh, Hi, Tamara.
hello.
Good morning. Tom, you have to accept the invitation. Yeah, thank you.
Yay.
Hi, George. Good morning.
Good morning. How's everybody today?
Well, I'm good.
Starting a little slow, but we're getting there.
Yeah,
It's Sunday. It's Sunday.
I know. You guys are troopers.
And how are you?
We're super troopers, buddy.
Super troopers.
Link. Paste. Add link. Honey, I stopped hearing the music. Did you lower the music down? Or okay, got it. I got the volume up now here. Great.
All right, let's get started with workbook lesson 65. My only function is the one God gave me. Hope everybody's ready for a nice Sunday morning. It's March 6th, according to my clock. And out of Course in Miracles workbook for dummies, my only function is the one God gave me. The idea for today, that my only function is the one that God gave me, reaffirms your commitment to salvation. And if my dad pops in, I'll have to adjust something. Let me get this part fixed. I didn't look up. Try that again.
By the way, did you know trooper? Uh, when we say you're a real trooper, is spelled Trouper.
I did, but
Yes,
that's
I.
only because I just looked it up by accident
Oh,
to
did
figure
you?
that out. Well, I mean,
That sounds awful with the filter.
it does. God. My timing's a little off this morning.
Yeah, it's
All
Sunday.
right,
We
let me
can
come back
forgive.
to my real function then.
Yeah,
My only
This
function,
is
yeah,
a test to forgive, you know? So
just forgive.
don't test us.
Okay. My only function is the one God gave me. The idea for today, that my only function is the one God gave me, reaffirms your commitment to salvation. The idea for today, that my only function is the one God gave me, also reminds you that you have no function other than that of forgiveness, and thus your happiness. Both of these two thoughts, that your function is forgiveness and that forgiveness is your only function, are obviously necessary for a total commitment. Salvation cannot be the only purpose you hold while you still cherish other purposes and goals. The full acceptance of salvation as your only function necessarily entails two phases. The first is the recognition of salvation as your function, and the second is relinquishment of all the other goals you've invented for yourself. This single purpose and recognition that salvation through your forgiveness is the only way in which you can take your rightful place among the saviors of the world. This single purpose and recognition is the only way in which you can say and mean, my only function is the one God gave me. This single purpose and recognition that forgiveness is your function and thus your happiness is the only way which you can find peace of mind. Today, and for a number of days to follow, set aside 10 to 15 minutes for a more sustained practice period in which you try to understand and accept what the idea for the day, today says, my only function is the one God gave me, really means. Today's idea offers you escape from all your perceived difficulties. Having this single purpose and recognition that salvation through your forgiveness is your happiness places the key to the door of peace, which you have closed upon yourself in your own hands. Having this single purpose and recognition that forgiveness is the key to your happiness gives you the answer to all the searching you have done since time began. Try, if possible, to undertake the daily extended practice periods at approximately the same time each day. Also, try to determine this time in advance and then adhere to that time as closely as possible. All right, we're going to have to think ahead a little bit more today, I guess. The purpose of this adherence to that time is to arrange your day so that you set apart the time for God, as well as time for all the trivial purposes and goals you will pursue. This is part of the long-range disciplinary training your mind needs so that the Holy Spirit can use your mind consistently for the purpose that the Holy Spirit shares with you, which is the salvation or the healing of the split-minded to the truth that separation is not real and you are holy. For the longer practice period, begin by reviewing the idea for the day, that the function of forgiveness is the only function God gave me. Then close your eyes. Repeat the idea that the function of forgiveness is the only function God gave me. Once again, to yourself. Watch your mind carefully and catch whatever thoughts cross your mind. At first, make no attempt to concentrate only on thoughts related to the idea for the day. Rather, try to uncover each thought that arises to interfere with the idea that the function of forgiveness is the only function God gave me. Note each interfering thought as it comes to you, with as little involvement or concern as possible, dismissing each interfering thought by telling yourself, this thought reflects an egoic, fear-based goal that is preventing me from accepting my only function. After a while, interfering thoughts will become harder to find. Try, however, to continue a minute or so longer, attempting to catch a few of the idle, egoic, fear-based thoughts that escaped your attention before, but do not strain or make undue effort in doing this. Then tell yourself, on this clean slate, let my true functions be written for me. You don't have to use those exact words, but try to get a sense of being willing to have your illusions of purpose be replaced by the truth of the purpose you share with the Holy Spirit. Remember that to the Holy Spirit, the world is a place where you learn to forgive yourself for what you think of as your sins. Your perceived sins are based on your belief in separation, that you are not holy or whole. Finally, repeat the idea for today, that my only function is the one God gave me once more, and devote the rest of the practice period to trying to focus on the importance of forgiveness to you. Focus on the relief that your acceptance of you having a single function of forgiveness will bring you. This having a single purpose can resolve your conflicts once and for all. Focus on the extent to which you really want salvation, in spite of your own foolish, egoic, fear-based ideas to the contrary. In the shorter practice periods, which should be undertaken at least once an hour, use this form in applying today's idea. My only function is the one God gave me. I want no other function, and I have no other function. Sometimes close your eyes as you practice this. Sometimes keep them open and look around you. It is what you see now with the eyes of your ego that will be totally changed when you accept today's idea completely, that your function of forgiveness is the only function God gave you. That is the end of the lesson. We've got a complicated one today, people. Hi, Papa. How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right.
All right. All right.
Sorry
Notes.
I'm late.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Okay. The notes for lesson 65. My only function is the one God gave me. Have you ever found yourself in a stressful situation? Often stress arises when we have conflicting goals or different desired outcomes for a particular event. Goals that conflict or are mutually exclusive create stress because we cannot get everything that we believe we need and want. We make choices, but what is the best criterion to arrive at that choice? Dad, would you take a couple of paragraphs for me? After this, lesson 65 provides some simple yet practical guidelines for your decision maker to follow. If implemented in your life, these guidelines will clarify your mission and simplify the decision-making process while maximizing the benefits. I'm sorry, you got to come off mute. My bad.
The first criterion is to have a single purpose. When you have a single purpose, you develop a laser focus, because that's all you think about. Your decisions and actions are based on this simple question: will making a particular choice move me forward towards my single purpose? Of course, in time and space, we often have multiple goals in mind for each day in our lives. In this case, it's important to prioritize your goals. For example, if we were to categorize our activities, they would fit into fit into one of three categories. Waiting for the page to move. Maybe I can do this here. Well, category A, is working directly on the accomplishment of number one, priority that aligns with our single purpose. Category B, items are needed before we can move on to a category A item. They support or are necessary steps towards the completion of a category A item. Category C items may be fun and enjoyable, but these items do not support or move you closer to the completion of either a category A or B item. In what category do you spend most of your time? I was afraid he was going to ask that question. Good for you, Tom. Lesson 65 says that your real function is your reawakening to the truth of who you really are. You are God's beloved child. We need to recognize and accept this fact. We are spiritual beings having an earthly experience. Therefore, our function in time and space is to recognize that salvation is our only function. We want to end or save we want to end or save our world from the illusion of separation and fear. That's in time and space. Illusions, or the taking on of the physical appearance, have no ability to change who you really are. Your goal is to reawaken sleeping minds to the truth of who they really are. You fulfill that function through the act of forgiveness. In time and space, your function is forgiveness. Salvation will arrive when you are willing to release all from the prison of your mind and accept the at-one-ment for yourself. When you do that, you save your world.
Lesson 65. You want me to pick it up? You can keep going if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lesson 65 states that once you recognize that salvation or forgiveness is the only function given to you by God, you can proceed to the next step. This second step is the relinquishment of all other goals that your ego has invented for your accomplishment. Since the ego does not know who you are, the ego is incapable of developing any plan that can achieve salvation for your world. When you realize that your function has been provided by God, the goals that your ego has invented to fix, change, protect, impress, or correct can easily be dismissed. To be the salvation for your world, you need to recognize the correct and only function you have is the one God has given you. Then you need to drop any allegiance to your ego's thought system and follow exclusively the thought system of love and forgiveness. You need to follow the Holy Spirit's plan for salvation. Only by doing both can you reclaim your divine birthright as savior of your world and obtainer of the peace of God. That's your destiny, because it's the will of God. God's will and your will must join in that single purpose. Okay, let's take a moment or two. Today we've got a little bit of a kind of a complicated setup, if I remember correctly. So if you've got a reminder system, you may want to turn it on so that you've got reminders throughout the day. We're going to do hourly lessons. So today, 65, my only function is the one God gave me. And I've got an hourly reminder set up. So the reminders app that some of us are using, ACIM Remind, that one will set it up so that you've automatically got kind of a 9 to 5 reminder. My only function is the one God gave me. As far as the 2 longer practice periods, we're going to take care of one of those right this minute. And then all you have to do is remember to do a little bit of a longer session this evening before you go to sleep. So, let's take a moment, take some deep breaths. Stephanie's not here. Hey, Frankie, you want to lead us in some breaths?
Hey, good morning,
You feel
everyone.
like it?
I
3
can
deep
try.
breaths? Yeah, we wing it
Okay.
every time. It's no problem.
Okay. Close your eyes. Focus on your heart center. Take 1 inhale. 1 exhale. 2 seconds inhale. 2 exhale. 3 seconds inhale. 3 exhale. And repeat. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. That was great. I really appreciate other voices here. I think it really helps me keep focused and all the rest of us kind of stay on point. So thank you. Appreciate that. The
No
full
problem.
Good. The full acceptance of salvation as your only function entails 2 different phases. The first one is the recognition that this is your function, salvation, your salvation. The second one is relinquishing all the other goals that we made for ourselves. The only way we can do this and take our rightful place among the saviors of the world, we do this by saying, my only function is the one that God gave me. Today we're going to repeat this thought. My only function is the one God gave me several times. We're going to keep it in our minds every hour. This idea that my only function is the one God gave me offers me escape from every perceived difficulty. It places the keys to freedom in my hands. It gives me the answer to all the searching that I've done my whole life for the solution that's outside of me. The reason I could never find it is because that's not where the solution lands. The solution is inside of me. And this answer will come from within. Today begins part of the deep mind training in the course. It's creating discipline in your mind so that your thoughts guide where you go. Your thoughts lead to emotions. Emotions don't leap into your mind unbidden. So today, when you have time, close your eyes, repeat to yourself, my only function is the one God gave me. Then watch your mind. Catch those thoughts that come across. You don't have to concentrate and control. Just listen to the phrase, my only function is the one God gave me. And then listen. Note each one as it comes. Try to remain as uninvolved as possible. Don't be concerned. Dismiss these ideas by telling yourself, this thought represents a goal which is preventing me from accepting my only function. After a while, interfering thoughts will become harder to find. Try to continue a minute or so longer, attempting to catch a few idle thoughts which slipped past your attention before. But don't strain. Don't make undue effort. Tell yourself, when you're done, on this clean slate, let my true function be written for me, or in your own words. Imagine clearing a space so the Holy Spirit can give you your function. To finish the session that you're in, every hour, repeat, my only function is the one God gave me. And be willing to release any notions to the contrary. Let me remember today, once an hour, to repeat the idea. My only function is the one God gave me. I want no other, and I have no other. That, my friends, is really the truth. Let's take some deep breaths and bring ourselves out of this meditation. I'll let you breathe at your own rate, but I'll give you a good 30 seconds to pull yourself up and out. I'll read the question of the day. You can have a nice discussion and a wonderful Sunday. Have you ever noticed how stressful an event becomes when you have multiple or conflicting goals for that event itself? What criteria did you use to resolve those conflicts? I can tell you about my stressful event. I've been moving, I guess since December. I moved into a furnished apartment, and I left behind a bunch of stuff at the last place I lived. And now I'm looking for an unfurnished apartment so I can collect my stuff and bring it all into one location. And I don't know if you guys have ever had your stuff scattered around the world like I do, but there's some stuff down in North Carolina. Dad's looking around looking at my stuff right now. And I got stuff scattered all over this state too. And I'm looking forward to finding a place where I can at least bring it all together and get rid of everything I don't need. But it does feel like I'm scattered rather than focused. And that happened because I wasn't sure exactly where I was going when I moved out. I'm still not exactly sure where I'm going. But I can tell you this. If I've learned anything after reading this book, it's that I'm headed towards the kingdom of heaven. And I know the next place I live in, it's going to have space for my kids. It's going to have space for the people I love. And I'll be safe, and it'll be mine, or ours. But, yeah, anyway, for what it's worth, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Have you ever noticed how stressful an event becomes when you have multiple conflicting goals for that event itself? My criteria is coming back to this book and using this book to guide my way in the right way. And the book has brought me great gifts, and I'm grateful for those.
Well, I do have something to say about a specific lesson, because in the other ones, I do get like that I'm the light of the world, and that I can really like perceive everyone else as the light of the world as well. But this specific lesson is giving me like this huge focus and attention to just forgiveness. And I do remember that Ken Wapnick, in all of the books that I read about his teachings and all the time, he always said to people, this is a course in miracles, but it's a course in forgiveness. This is, I mean, you want to see miracles, you need to start with forgiveness. And up until this lesson, I really can understand how this can be the light of the world. My only function is the one God gave me. And I was thinking this morning, but what is that, being the light of the world? But if you said to yourself that you need to be the light of the world, it will trigger some kind of ego thoughts. Because being the light of the world could have a lot of other like belief systems attached to it, so you will feel weird. But when you've been told that the only function that God has given you is forgiveness, because that's how you became the light of the world, it makes you really focus and put your attention in what you need to do every single time with conflicting situations. I never thought it that way, because I was so like focused on the thing about light because I really love like the concepts of light and love and being the love and being the Christ mind. But yeah, this is truly a forgiveness book. So I was thinking about yesterday, as Lee was telling a part of his day, I had really this huge lesson on this. It's funny because really I have been dealing with experiences the day prior to the lessons, and I always can use the content of my last day to apply the concepts. There was some moment with Lee that we had these kind of conflicting thoughts. And I really, without me having that intention, I had this huge like, oh my God, that the stress that Tom is talking about. I mean, the stress of having multiple or conflicting goals, because what I'm trying to do with my life now is really opening myself to this new whole world of love and peace, and have the responsibility of my life back again, so I can undo the things that I have been doing and redo my life with these full concepts on the foundation of what I'm creating now with Lee. And that's one goal. But on the other hand, of course, I have this conflict that I'm undoing my life, and that means that I'm putting some stress on my kids' life or my children's life. And I have to deal with that in order to be able to move forward with this new life that I'm trying to build with Lee. So yesterday we had this kind of conflict, and my mind really went fully on fear. And I started to see myself like, oh my God, what I'm doing, this is the right thing to do. I mean, I'm really, and I started to go in fear, and I was trying really to shake my head out from those feelings, but it was because my mind was trying to keep me in that position because I needed to forgive something that I needed to find. And we kept talking with Lee, and we could really find, I could really find the piece of information that was holding me back in that kind of perception. And I knew that nothing had happened. I mean, the conflict that we had yesterday, it wasn't even a conflict. It was just a misunderstanding and non-filtered words that it didn't mean anything. But my mind took those and drove me down the lane of fear. So I needed to really take a moment to watch that stress that I was having and really put an effort to finally see what was holding me in that kind of position, because that position is not the true self that I am. So by talking with Lee and getting our minds in order, I could finally see that I was having this kind of, how was it? I was
Like
putting,
a conflict?
yeah, no, but I was putting expectation outside, you know?
Yeah. We're
I
looking
was,
outside for answers.
yeah, I was looking outside for validation, for answers, for
What a
reaffirmation,
lesson.
and yeah, it was a beautiful lesson yesterday. And then I could really in an instant feel back again good. I mean, I could really felt good right in an instant, and my heart felt back again. I could undo all the fear that I had, like for a period of I don't know, 1 hour or something. And it is as this lesson says, my only function that God has given me, it's always to forgive. If I wouldn't have the time yesterday to observe my thoughts, observe my feelings, and trying to really see with the intention of putting them into the light, I wouldn't been able to find that piece of information. I was really putting many expectations on the outside world, and there's nothing that I need to do around that. I just need to forgive my past experience, because all the fear that I was having in that moment came from the past experience. So I need to forgive those in order to just dismiss any kind of situation in the present that was bringing me back these memories from the past, because those are not my true self. I'm really now clearly, I'm seeing clearly now that, yeah, my only function is not being the light of the world. I need to forgive. And by forgiving, I'm giving light to my world. I'm saving my world by forgiving. And that was a huge learning for Lee as well, because he was yesterday as well in a position where he felt again in some kind of conflict, and he didn't I mean, we wasn't seeing the things like in the same page, and then we could finally like put ourselves in order, our minds in order, and we can really agree on this kind. Oh yeah, I've been doing this. He could really relate to what I was telling him, and I could really relate to what he was telling me, and it all went good. So this lesson, it's beautiful. I'm gonna mark this, as this is the first time that I'm doing this. I'm gonna mark this lesson, because for
We
me it's
finally
really
made it
like,
past where you had been. Great.
yeah, of course. I mean, I only went to the first round of lessons the last year, so I'm really, all this from the 61 I guess it was. No, from the, well, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing this for the first time, so I'm going to mark this one because this is a great one for me.
All
I
right.
wanted to share that as a practical example.
I hear you. Finding practical examples in this book is really why we're here. It's the hardest, it was part of the hardest part for me. So, finding a way where, as we said yesterday, the rubber hits the road is kind of our goal. So coming back to my only function is the one God gave me. I'd love to hear from anybody else as to how you kind of find that one focus. One of the things that Adriana said when we first cracked the book open this morning as I was setting up was, what is this function? And as I read back through the titles, we're on 65 today. So 61 is, I'm the light of the world. 62 is, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. 63 is cut off. I have to go to it. The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. 64 is, let me not forget my function. And then today, my only function is the one God gave me. So as the light of the world, forgiveness is my function. It's what helps us all get back to the sonship through the atonement or the at-one-ment. And this book uses the word atonement differently than we usually do today. There are 3 definitions in the Oxford Dictionary. I'm looking for the word atonement so I can make it come up. But the third one, the one that we're focused on, is more of a, they call it a Christian spiritual definition, which is the unification of yourself and God. God's one being. We look at it here to help us understand as the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but it's still one being. Turns out we're part of and provided information from the Holy Spirit. So our spirit is part of that. Our spirit is part of the one God. That's the part of us that is holy. So today on this clean slate, I want to see my true function be written for me.
In my case, I know that I've always, well, since I can remember, and my memory starts around age 12 or so, but I've always had a single purpose, and that made it very clear as to where I wanted to go. And if you would have woken me up, at 14, 15, and from a deep sleep and asked, what what are you here to do? And I just blurt on out, not to come back here. Uh, it was based on just my hate and for this world and what I perceived as a world that hated me. And but that single purpose uh, kept me moving in the direction. Over time, that purpose has been modified eventually into my purpose just being that I'm God's beloved child with whom she's well pleased. That's a lot easier function. Whenever you change that purpose, your life can turn around. So instead of this necessarily being a hateful world, uh, it could be something else, or it could become actually in this case, I'm going to use the term play school. But you know, as you whenever you realize that Course in Miracles is saying that your function is forgiveness, that's your one purpose, to reawaken to the truth of who you are, that makes everything else a whole lot easier, because whenever you have conflicting goals, you can always see, is that moving me forward? Now that in the notes I put in there that there's 3 um, B, C priorities that we have, and we start our day with perhaps, I don't know if you work off lists or not with those type of lists, and it's important to mark what are those things. Are they an A, B, or a C priority? But what often happens is we continue through our day, we get something that's not on our list at all. And what I'm going to call those are D priorities, which are other people's priorities, that they want to co opt you into moving off of things that you originally had set out to do and shift towards solving their problems or their issues or their priorities. And it's important to, maintain, focus, especially in time and space, so that you stay on track. But it's very important to know where your priorities lie, so that when you're in a situation where you have multiple goals or competing demands on your time, you can slip back into those list of priorities and say, what trumps the other? What's the most important thing? How can I move forward? And in time and space, anyways, priorities change also in regards to uh, the uh, as you get nearer and nearer the witching date where something has to be accomplished. A lower priority might move up in the world, but it's important to try and maintain focus on the A and B priorities. A priorities, in this case, Course in Miracles, my salvation, or my idea that my purpose here is a spiritual one, reawakening to the truth, forgiveness, and but B priorities are things that help you move towards it, often need to be accomplished before you can move on to that A priority, or it's a stepping stone. And C priorities, which a lot of times people spend most of their time, are things that are entertaining or don't really move you towards your goal. And we're often pulled into what I'll call D priorities, which are things that weren't even on your list, but someone else said, I've got an emergency, and they made their problem or crisis yours. And we need to maintain our focus on
I tell you, that one's my undoing,
this.
Tom. Those D priorities, boy, nothing zaps you like D priorities. My God.
Can you place that part of the book in the screen, please?
I can try. Is that in your notes, Tom?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's
those
it
are
in the
Tom's
notes.
notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the D are, as the lead just said, really sapsuckers. You go and if you've ever worked off of a list, uh, you have a number of things on it, and you look the next day and they're still there, and you say, "What did I spend my
Dang it.
time on?" And well, and another thing, just in regards to time management, but what we often do is we look at our list and we see that we've got a half hour or whatever, and we say, well, in a half hour, I can't really accomplish my A or B priorities, and therefore we tend to do a lower priority item. Always want to focus on A or B. Uh, that's where you want to place your time. So a half hour on I'll call it B priority, is better than spending a half hour on something that quote unquote you could maybe accomplish, but it doesn't really move you up. It's a something that, yeah, if I got it accomplished a month from now, or a year from now, or never, it wouldn't really be earth shattering. I need to focus on that uh, A priority, and realize that a lot of times my time is wasted on those C, and the problem with D priorities, C priorities at least are fun and entertaining. D priorities typically are pains in the butt, and uh, are just big wasters because they and that's where a lot of times we spend, as Lee mentioned, our time. So that list, don't just make a list, but categorize with A, B, C, and try and stay focused on those B or A items. Thank you. I just want to say, uh, when you realize that your purpose is, uh, and in my case, it was not to have to come back here, but that was uh, when that was my goal. Everything I'd look and I'd say, is that getting where I want to go? You know, and like I say, how I hope to achieve that goal uh, varied throughout my life, but I knew that that was my goal. And, it's changed a little, but uh, always realize, especially if you realize that you're a spiritual being, have an earthly experience, our goal is to really become divinely selfish from the standpoint to continue to focus on the priority that God gave you, which is the reawakening to the truth of what you really are. And by that, you uplift everything, as opposed to get sucked into the world's priorities. Interesting that this lesson actually said what we want you to do is to spend 15 minutes a couple times a day on focusing on your A priority, which is, being forgiving yourself and forgiveness. And we know that you live in time and space. So put down the other times on your schedule for dealing with the things that you need to maintain your body. It doesn't say we want you to uh, 24 hours keep on focusing on uh, this one assignment. Realizes that you're
Yeah,
uh,
be
to
impossible anyway.
maintain your body, and it tells you go ahead, spend some time. Just keep on working on things on your list, whether they be spiritual or making some money or bringing food or cooking. Whatever you do it with that idea that these are things that I want to do because they're moving me forward. Thank you.
Well, I have to say thank you because you have given us really a good tool, Tom, in your book
Yes.
by saying this kind of or by giving us that kind of direction to have this let me say the word this kind of categories listed like this. So for everybody in the room, if you go to the Facebook group, you can see this part of Tom's book on George posting about today's lesson, where you can find the description of every category. This is a good exercise to do today because you have time today. You're not running late for any kind of work to do. So you should take this time of Sunday to list your categories and try to do this exercise, and it will give you, because I'm going to do it as well, it will give you this laser focus that he was talking about. And yesterday lesson that was the light of the world brings peace to all minds was all about attention. Where is your attention? Because you have the ego, you have the Holy Spirit, and you have the decision maker inside of you. But where is your attention? So Tom is really helping us here in a great way to start taking action with our day-to-day decisions. With this, having these categories listed will give you really a good amount of information to focus your attention on what is needed for you to change your world around, and it's starting to experience the kingdom of heaven through forgiveness. That's the only function that God has given us. So I'm really thankful, Tom. You have done a great job on doing this workbook for doing this. Thank you very much. And it is in the Facebook group or oh my God, in the link above, in our room. There's A Course in Miracles live, and you can find all the sources of our streaming, and that there you can find as well the group in Facebook. So we can use different ways to show you this part of the book from Tom.
One of the you can, if you go on the website endingfear.org, you can download a sample of the dummy series too. But one of the things that we need to realize is that A Course in Miracles is really practical, and a lot of times people miss that point. It's going to give you a whole lot of ideas, concepts that if you adopt in your life, okay, can make your journey in time and space, this lifetime, much more interesting, fun, lovable, and enjoyable. Uh, and a lot of that has to do with uh, giving yourself permission to and forgiving yourself for deciding to come here in the first place, so to speak. But it's a practical course. I tell people, if your spiritual practice cannot help you live a happy, fuller life today, what good is it? It's of little use. God wants you to be happy today. Your happiness, your inner peace, does not have to be postponed for some future fantasy land that never seems to arrive. Your function is forgiveness, but God's will for you is that you be happy. And when we're talking about happiness, that's really the inner peace you feel when you live your life in alignment with the principles that you have chosen to guide your life. And ultimately, as you reawaken to the truth of who you are, those principles will you'll understand that the law of God, not the law of men or time and space, but the law of God is to give is to receive. And when you start forgiving yourself and someone said yesterday, and it's been said before, start loving yourself unconditionally, you can start loving everybody else that way. You need to open up all the prison doors. Let everybody be the prison of our minds, where we put people on prison because of our lack of forgiveness, and realize that when we refuse to forgive others for the roles that we've asked them to play in our journey of reawakening, we, as the warden of the prison, has to stay in that same prison, guarding that cell so that they can't escape. And we have to open up all the doors and realize that until we do, we're trapped in the same prison. So be kind to yourself and realize that God, unlike us, never condemned us. God knows that we're just little children playing around, having some fun with toys, and that we've forgotten what we are. We're like the boy pretending that he's a dog, and we now think we're the dog. The Holy Spirit will reawaken us to the truth if we shut the ego's mind off and start quieting that ego and starting listening to the guide that God placed in front of us or inside of us to return us home. And we're guaranteed to wake up because God didn't make any junk.
Uh-huh.
And if he do, he will just turn it into something beautiful. No, you know what? I'm just realizing that, yeah, through forgiveness, you can also find yourself really setting your boundaries. Because there's sometimes when you can be so loving that you have experiences that test that kind of um, conflicting pattern that you have when you give all of yourself to others, but you seemingly don't receive anything back. That's of course an ego thought, and it gets like harder to set boundaries, right? But when you see this really forgiveness function, by forgiving you really set boundaries, because when you forgive, then you really are setting yourself free for any kind of action that you want to take in order just to be surrounded or I mean, it's just that through forgiveness you really understand that as everything comes within you, the first thing that you need to forgive is your own actions. So you stop looking at yourself like this poor victim that always gives love and doesn't receive back anything, and you start just to take responsibility of your own actions that have been taking you every single time to have these experiences on not receiving back, supposedly, because now you can see what you have been doing in order to put yourself into prison. So when you forgive yourself, then you realize that your actions have been taking a huge part on your conflict, and then you remove yourself, your perception on that, and it will give you a different kind of approach to life. So you no longer are searching for the kind of experiences that bring you like these huge lessons or testing on your belief systems, because you are no longer in conflict with the idea of love. So you just remove yourself without any struggle. You don't have to fight it. That's why the book always says that love needs no defense, because if you really truly are loved, then you are forgiven, and everything is forgiven. It has been forgiven already. So you just stop putting resistance to some things in your perception, and you start to approach your decisions with the Holy Spirit's help, with a loving heart, and everything starts to move around differently. You don't engage that easily. The boundaries that I was talking about in other session, that has nothing to do with defense, are that you need to just keep your heart out of fear. That's the only determination that you need to make, that your heart needs to be really clean or pure, and that doesn't demand defense, that doesn't demand resistance to anything, just forgiveness. So if you want to feel your heart whole, complete, and full of like energy and joy, then you will have forgiveness as your best defense system, right? So it's beautiful. I didn't saw it like that before. Like forgiveness is the best defense for having a pure heart.
Yeah, think of yourself instead of a body, think of yourself as energy circuits. Uh, let's just pretend that we have 100 energy circuits. And when we refuse, and in order to call anything into your awareness and to activate in time and space, you need attention or energy, creative energy, to actually have those things manifest. And so when we're in what totally might call the now, we're bringing our energy into the present moment. What most people have is their energy circuits are not free to engage in the activities in front of them because they have most of their energy circuits tied on to unforgiving things in the past. And so what we've got is, I got kicked in the teeth whenever I was 5 or something like that, and I keep on replaying that in my mind. In order to keep that in my memory bank, I need to have an energy circuit plugged into that idea. So let's just say I've got 5 energy circuits plugged into the idea that I got kicked in the teeth whenever I was 5 years old. Uh, then I've got some other event that maybe I failed this test and therefore I was not accepted in college or whatever it might be. And I say that ruined my life. And I got 20 replaying that. And we keep on, and a lot of those things are lack of forgiveness to others, also to ourselves, depending on who, we're playing the blame, shame, and guilt game, either on ourselves or somebody else or some other thing. But we've got those energy circuits now plugged into the past. And so what happens in the present moment is instead of having 100 energy circuits available to engage in what's in front of me right now, the task on hand, I only have 22 left, okay, to bring my attention to because I've got uh, 78 all tied up with past crap or things that are not in the moment. And so now, whenever I come forward to perform, and in the now, and I've only got 22 energy circuits available to me, I'm not going to be able to perform as well. Now, in order to free up energy circuits, I need to forgive myself and everybody else that I blamed and shamed for kicking me in the teeth whenever I was 5. When I forgive all, I recover those 5 energy circuits. So now instead of having 22, I've got 27. Okay, that's about a almost a 20% increase in what I can bring forward to the present. If I can forgive myself for uh, being not passing that test and being able to go to school or whatever, or college, whatever I blame that screwed up my life. A lot of times we think that this event screwed up my life. Okay, might have 20 energy circuits plugged in on replaying that I'm a screw up. Okay, if I can forgive myself for that and say that was a learning lesson and that puts me closer to where I want to go, I now would have, uh, and I forgave myself for the other, I now have 47 energy circuits to deal with and bring to the table today in any event that happens. So, our purpose in forgiving is because it frees up energy circuits, which allows us to accomplish much, much more in the present and move towards the future that we're becoming. And time is really, uh, well, most people think that we're a product of the past. That's because we've got so much energy circuits tied into our past. When we start focusing on what we're becoming, that we're God's beloved child, okay, uh, where our present is driven by our future. That's why it's important to have one single focus. I'm not coming back here. Okay. That was a focus. Okay. That's where my attention was. I'm driven to the truth. Now so whatever that focus is that keeps you on track, that's where we're going. Okay. So know that the truth is that God didn't make any junk. God wants you to be happy. God is never condemned you. It's ourselves that screwed this thing up. And because we condemned ourselves, we're the keeper. And it says it in this lesson, we're the keeper of our own karmic keys. We can free ourselves and just accept the truth. God's love flows unconditionally. It's there to be received. We just have to open our arms and accept it. I accept the love of God because it just flows. So, just be aware that our lack of forgiveness ties up energy circuits which disempower you. So, the reason that I forgive myself or any other actor that was playing in the lessons that I needed to learn. Okay. And somewhere I mistakenly took the actor for the person. Okay. Not realizing that person was playing a role. I forgive them and I forgive myself. Why? Because I'm a selfish SOB that wants to recover my energy circuits so that I can reawaken to the truth of who I am. I am a divinely selfish SOB who's focused on what my purpose is that God gave me, not what my ego gave me. And that makes life a whole lot easier, enjoyable, and fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right. Maggie, you are welcome to come up and share. And Carrie, it's so great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I hope.
Bob, do you want to jump into the
Yeah,
conversation? Okay. I'm
sure.
sorry, Lee. I'm sorry, honey. I just that
That's okay.
I saw that
Maggie
your
had.
dad had the open mic.
Okay.
Maggie May.
She'd raised her hand, and I thought I'd invited her up, but I
Yeah.
guess I messed up.
Wake up, Maggie. I think I. Never
Maggie,
mind.
I did send you the invitation as well. You are raising.
There we
There
go.
she is.
We figured it out. Goodness gracious.
Maggie, you want to talk to
Anybody
us,
can
Maggie?
talk that wants.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just jump in here.
Yeah.
Um, and then Maggie, you can talk afterwards if you'd like.
Oh, sorry. I thought I was unmuted. I'm so sorry. I said good morning, everybody. How are you all?
This happens
Good
with us all
morning.
the time. It's okay. Dad's my Bob. Bob's my dad. You're
Oh,
okay.
really?
Absolutely.
That's
Yep.
awesome. Hi, everybody. Oh, hi. Okay, so you're gonna let me speak now. Thank you. Okay, give me a second.
You're doing great. Nice deep breath. It's okay. It's all right. This is
um,
truly a safe place.
well, I do feel that it is a safe place, and I wanted to come up when I heard Tom talking about. I'm a very visual person. That's how I learn, and the way he described those energy circuits really helped me to kind of get a better idea of, like, you know, just really the purpose of forgiveness, besides the fact that it's like why, we're here and what we're supposed to learn and it's the right thing. But, like, I feel like my ego always comes up with some stubborn reason to just hold on to things even just a little bit. But when you really say it like that, it's like I'm such a logical person, and if I had, like, all of my, like, phone chargers plugged into, like, all of the outlets, that would drive me nuts, and I'd have to go around and, like, unplugging them all because I know that, like, I'm wasting energy and electricity and money and all these things. So, like, that would drive me nuts. So hearing Tom say that, like, oh my God, all of these things are absolutely, like, and it resonated as truth because I do filter everything through, like, my heart filter, and my higher self was like, yes, girl, that's why we brought you in this room, because I don't know, I always just get led to whatever room or whatever YouTube video or book, or I'm just addicted to seeking truth all the time, and so I ended up here. And it's funny, A Course in Miracles, I was at this amazing crystal shop here in Fort Lauderdale. It's called Crystal Vision, and I ended up picking up that book, and I just sat there next to this like huge 4 foot tall amethyst geode, and it was like vibrating these high frequencies at me, and it just felt so good. So I just sat there in a chair and just read. I'm like that person that's like, is she gonna buy that? But I just
Oh, that sounds nice.
and then like my
They
kids
were staring at you, so you don't take the book with you without paying.
all the kids were like looking at all the crystals, and my friends were shopping, and so I was like, ooh, I've always been like that. I want to like find a little cave with like a really good book, and just like I'm life path number 9, so I'm like a natural hermit, I just want to like be finding God somewhere next to a tree. So anyway, I digress, but what Tom said about the energy circuits really, I think, is going to help me a lot, to be that driving force, because I really don't like to be wasteful, not with like anything, and especially not like the energy that I have. I'm already 44, and I don't need to be wasting any more energy. I want to keep everything that I have for this ascension. And I think the first thing that resonated with me was when Tom said that he said he wasn't going to come back here, and I already know that that's me too. Like, I'm here for this time, for this purpose, to help humanity, and to do this, what we're all here doing, everybody here in this room, but I didn't have any plans on coming here otherwise. I'm like, no. So I really, when you said, Tom, forgive yourself for like coming here or even deciding to come here, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that, but that is a really big one for me, because I keep thinking like, oh, Maggie, I really don't think that you had informed consent in this situation. Like I've read up, in the School of Melchizedek, which I was probably part of, and all this stuff, and like, no, they warned you it was going to be rough. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that they were not this specific on how dense it was going to feel for me as an empath and as a sensitive soul, and but it's okay, because I'm here now, and like I do want to be like thorough, and like Tom was saying, like get the job done. I'm not here like to waste time. So what you said about writing a list about the things that you wanted to do, and I think I came a little bit late, so I didn't understand exactly what categories to list or really whatnot. But my ego and my slothy self really just kind of likes to take things, like I go with the flow. I don't like too much planning out, and so when I hear, but I have that side of me that when I get into writing lists and organizing, I get really hyper into it. So it's either or for me. So I'm like, oh, I'm happy over here, but I feel like I should be making lists, but I'm like, part of me just doesn't really want to sit in that like rigid energy of constantly planning every moment. And I love living, in the 5D and on the fly. And although my friends that have 3D lives hate me for that, I love my life because of that, because I don't make it so rigid, and I just kind of, somebody calls and invites me somewhere, I just go, or like get a whim and I just do it. So I don't like to heavily plan things.
That's all right. That is all right.
And people like, they just look at my life and they, they get very resentful sometimes, especially if they're living with me, because they're like, what is your plan? What is your goals? Like my best friend and ex-boyfriend, he's very military, like, and I'm like, I don't have to be like you, I'm happy living like this. But again, I do feel like I should have some sort of plan, some sort of guidance, without letting myself get too rigid with it.
Well, you've got both sides of
Um,
the coin in you, and you can have both of
yeah,
those and be successful in both of those at your
yeah.
own pace. You know, there's a big part of this book that says you need do nothing. And for the last 5 years, I've been really frustrated because I've been in that phase where there's really not much I can do. I have to sit and wait for things to transpire so that I can
Mm.
react to them in the most peaceful way that I can. And God's in control of that timetable for me. I really appreciate you sharing. I didn't want to interrupt if you've got more to share, but I just
Oh
wanted
no, well,
to. You're
thank
doing
you,
great.
because I do appreciate feedback, because otherwise I feel like I'm just talking to myself, and I wonder if anybody's
Maggie,
Yeah,
still
it's tough.
listening.
We're
Maggie,
here though.
Maggie, I just posted in the chat the category
Mm.
A, B, and C items that Tom was talking about. If you want to do your list,
Oh
okay?
yeah, thank
So you can
you.
go to the room chat and you can find those three categories that he was referring to, because that's the way you untangle all your circuits.
Oh, thank you for reminding me, because I did have a question, for Tom, and then I also had a comment. Before I give you my question, I wanted to say, like, at the very end, when I was raising my hand, you were talking about being a divinely selfish son of a bitch or something like that. Anyways, when I pass it over to you, I'd like for you to repeat that, because I lost your thought, but I liked the way it sounded. And my question is, when you're forgiving others, specifically, like, let's say close family members, let's say you cut them out of your life. My thing with forgiveness is, like, do you need to let these people back into your life if it doesn't feel safe, in order to regain all of those energy circuits? Like, and what is your
Not if it
feeling of
doesn't feel safe.
Nope.
Never if it doesn't feel
Nope.
safe.
that?
Yeah, and
Never if it doesn't feel safe.
the thing that you need to understand is that we probably don't. I mean, you will probably have your entire life this kind of connections to them. You don't need to spend your time with them, but there's probably some times where you cannot avoid it. And the thing that we need to forgive is not forgive like the things that they have done to you, like they didn't happen. No, they did
Yes.
happen. And you need to realize that you need to feel safe by stating that that happened to you, whatever it is, that happened to you, and that gave you a set of emotions and a set of thoughts, that those thoughts needs to be expressed in a healthy way so you can look at it. If you don't take it out of your system in any healthy way, you will not be able to look at them without fear. When you look at them without the fear, then you realize that they are already in the past, so they cannot hurt you anymore, any longer. And therefore, you will find a space in your mind to reorganize your entire belief systems and trying to find other ways to feel peace, happiness, and whatever it is with other experiences in your life. And when you recognize the lesson that they were bringing into your table, because you are no longer seeing your past experiences without the fear, is when the magic happens. Well, the miracle happened, because then you take all the control of those past experiences in your present actions, and therefore you will no longer be bothered by having them as your family. You just recognize them as your family, but you don't feel like guilt by not having them in your life. You will move forward with your life, taking other kind of decisions, and you will build another kind of world for yourself, being apart from those experiences without denying them. You will never find peace in your mind or healing in those if you deny them. You don't need to deny anything. You just need to embrace that those things happen. You need to express them in a healthy way so you can look at it without fear. And by looking at them without fear, you will find a good place to start a new set of a new route in your process to just forgive them. because they already have passed and they gave you some kind of information for yourself to forgive. So you need to forgive the actions, the form of, you need to forgive the form of the lessons, because the content of the lesson is what you need to embrace within yourself in order to move forward with your life. And you don't need to have any kind of relationship with them, but in order for you to feel not guilty by not having them in your life, you need to do this first process. I don't know if this helps you, Maggie.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope so.
Well, what would you consider exactly the process? Like, I'm very literal, so like a
Okay,
meditation or
no, for example, in my case, I'm very like stuck with, when I have something to forgive, my ego won't let me go away. My ego will remain my feelings and my thought attached to the situation. So if my mind doesn't let go of the situation because I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling afraid, and I'm feeling scared or whatever, I need just to take a time to put my thoughts outside of me by telling somebody, by writing something, by having a moment of meditation, I don't know, doing chores around the house and just giving myself a time
Is this getting it
to
out of your
observe.
head? Is
Yeah,
that what you're
something
trying?
like that. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm giving examples so she can have several different perspectives, because it could be
I
a
journal to get
meditation,
stuff out of my head,
for
right?
example,
Everybody's got a
or
different way.
or when you talk to a friend that's who really up for you to listen, just
You
to
helped me
listen
do that
without any,
yesterday. Yeah,
yeah, for example.
exactly.
And so when you have those kinds of outlets, those are healthy ways to put your situation outside of you so you can look at it. And when you look at it, when you let your thoughts go outside of your mind in this healthy way, you can realize what is the lesson that they are bringing into your table. For example, in my relationship with my ex-husband, I was really stuck because I couldn't see what was that I wasn't getting. I didn't have any thoughts of hate towards him, and I was trying hard to not to hate him, but I wasn't able to move forward with the divorce. I wasn't getting any way an exit of this relationship, and I was feeling frustrated, and I was feeling so bad that I was in a dark place. So when the book came into my life and I was starting this process of understanding that my relationship with him has to do with my relationship with men, and the first of them was my dad, and I knew that my conflict with my ex-husband has to do probably with my relationship with my dad, was when I really understood that my ex-husband was showing the part of myself that had a lousy relationship with the Father, and the Father of all is God. So when I really started to put all my thoughts outside and sharing in a healthy way this, I could really start to connect the dots. So those situations that you had in your past that were hurtful for you, I know they happen. I know that you don't have to repeat those lessons, but you did own you. That you did owe yourself this kind of process, because there's a gift behind it that needs to be like unwrapped for you to just move forward with your life. So when you really took those outside of you and see what's the pattern there that you are not seeing clearly, then you will be able to put all those situations like something that you really learned, and then it's instantaneously. You will be able to move forward with your life, even if it is without them being part of your time in the present. The most common thing is that all those relationships is a reflection of your relationship with God, but you need to find it for yourself, because my experience is my experience, and I can tell you that worked for me. But unless you experience it and you do the job within your mind and your process, it will not be the truth for you, and you will keep repeating the lessons with other relationships. So what is good about what Tom gave us today, it's really like a roadmap to find this kind of patterns in our life that are giving us again and again and again the same kind of conflicts, because if you are taking most of your time in the category C, of course you are not driving your life towards the oneness, towards the concept of life that is just a single one thing, that we are all part of God and we are the sonship. So I hope this helps you. I know that for me has been really life-saving, but you need to do the work in your life as an experience. So for you, it is the same truth for me. And you will find as well your journey. I mean, your journey is taking you there, but it's by doing the exercises what will give you like this strong certainty and a strong belief that this is truth, and that what this book has been giving us is just a beautiful way to embrace everything and learn the lessons that we need to learn to feel at one, you know?
Thank
I
you
hope it
so
helps.
much. That helps a lot. That resonated with so much.
This is A Course in Miracles, and it has three parts to it. The first part is the understanding, the text of the whole principle of how to find miracles in your life, how to be a part of miracles, how to be aware that miracles are happening all around you. So the first thing they tell us is, if you're not seeing miracles all around you, something's gone wrong. And so then the question is, what is it that's keeping me from seeing miracles? There's a lot of ways to get somebody's attention, and you can try certain ways and it does some good. But most people would like to have some miracles. Miracles always has a very positive sense about it. So it gets our attention, and then it tells us how to do it. So the first thing is a text. It's explained all of the various facets that go around the whole idea of miracles so that we can have miracles in our life. The second part, which is what we're in now, are the lessons. It's the workbook for all of us who want it. So, one thing is the theory, so to speak, the explanation, the axioms, the postulates, the truths. It's all explained in that first book. But most people that I know had a lot of trouble getting through that volume one because they just didn't have certain skills developed yet, skills of thinking and compartmentalizing so that they can get that picture. So volume two has a lesson every day, very simple. If we just try that lesson on that day and go on and do the next one, and there's 365 lessons. Each one takes usually no more than about 10-15 minutes. This particular one has two different sessions at 10 or 15 minutes. All of that is, we do the best we can, just like anybody in school. You don't get graded. Sometimes a lesson number 65 is figured out in July. So what? The idea is it's all here. And part two is about changing the way we think about everything. That notion of changing the way we think about everything is really huge, and too much for someone to say, okay, I'll start thinking differently, just like you said. Well, that lasts for about 2.5 minutes, because you can't just change the way you think about everything. It doesn't happen. You think about the way you think, and you think about the things because your life has taught you to think that way. Even if it's brought you the bad stuff, it still is the way you think. What the Course in Miracles is about is changing the way you think about everything. And now it's telling us, let's get down to the very, very fundamental. What's the basic thing here? And the only thing I'm going to add to what I've just said is that there's a certain understanding that has to come in the very beginning of all of this. And that is whether or not you believe that there is a God that can be there and take you through this. A God or a guy or whatever. Some people cannot believe or don't believe in God yet. Well, if you don't believe in God, it's going to be really hard to do some of these. If you're not sure, but you think he probably is there, or she, or it, that'll probably serve.
Yeah, you can call it the energy of all there is if you want, if
Right.
that sound
Well,
resonates better, right?
I
right.
started out by using a refrigerator because it could make ice and I couldn't. I needed anything with a higher power than me.
That's so silly.
Okay. So that becomes the quest at first. And if you're not sure, then what happens is that most human beings have something that happens to them that awakens this awareness that there is a God, that there's a thing there that really has our best life experiences in mind for us. And what I want to describe very quickly is for anyone who is still at that place, or for anyone who is at any other place, to understand this particular principle. It was explained to me, I can remember it was in 1983, and I was in a room. It was a 12-step program. And this woman got up and she said, picture yourself sleeping and you're having a dream. And the dream becomes a nightmare. It's really a rotten idea. It's a rotten story that you are seeing while you're asleep. In fact, it's so bad that there's a monster in there that's about to come and choke you to death. This is not a good place to be. But as far as you understand, while you're sleeping, that is reality. That's really going to happen. Or you're going to get kicked off the edge of a cliff and there's no twigs to hold on to on your way down. It's going to hurt. And that moment, you wake up. In my case, it's because my wife is shaking me and saying, Bob, will you wake up? I don't know what you're going through, but this is crazy. So she wakes me up. And I look around. And all of a sudden, I realize I'm not being choked to death. I haven't fallen off a cliff. I'm not doing the Thelma and Louise of driving off a cliff. I'm right here in my bed. And everything's okay. I'm not going to die, at least today. It rhymes, even. And it's okay. That is an awakening. It's an awakening to a different reality. Because while I was sleeping, I had reality number one, being choked. Reality number two, a completely different reality, is I'm in a bed. And by then I may have even fallen out of the bed. But I'm in a different reality all of a sudden. And everything that was in that first reality is completely gone. Now I have a new way to think. In this case, I can do something about the way I think. When I was in the dream, I had no recourse. I had nowhere to go. So if you take those two actions, sleep to being awake, and you shift it over to the side, and you make the idea of awakening, what we're seeing now is everything's safe, everything's fine. I'm not in trouble. I'm not in a mountaintop about to fall off. Now we can begin to understand God. Because in
And
this
that's the
reality,
resurrection. That's the
yeah,
resurrection part of Jesus
that,
Christ.
that's right. Because now, having awakened to the idea that we're okay and we're safe, let's take that up a notch. Now we can begin to understand that we can be in a world where God is and we're safe. We can even entertain the notion or the idea that maybe there is a God, even though I don't see him. It's all okay. And we're not anymore a victim of circumstances that we couldn't do anything about, the way it was when we were in a dream. So this, in a sense, the second awakening, that now we can have the idea that there really is something that's keeping me safe. That's the second awakening. They call that a spiritual awakening, and that was written by a very famous psychologist, 100 and something years ago, 120 or so.
Carl
So
Jung.
it's really important to get that first. Yeah. And I also want to just add, for those of you who may have had any kind of 12-step experience, not required, but if you did, then you also know that the beginning of this whole deal of getting recovery of the real you, to find out who you really are, because you're not that thing in the dream, you're really here, is to start looking after you have said, well, maybe there is a God. I'm going to start listening for that. Is to start looking at yourself. And that's when you start looking at resentments or fears or guilt. There's other things too, but frankly, those three lists, if anybody wants to make a list to clear away the cobwebs and to be able to see who they really are, you can make a list of that. And yesterday, I was in a different room with A Course in Miracles, and a person very close to me, who happens to be next to me in this picture, my daughter, was talking from Houston, and she popped into that room, and she said that her whole problem with um, the forgiveness, which is what this lesson was about today, was she keeps forgiving this same person, and the person keeps on being, let's just say, nasty. Keep it simple. And she can't get rid of that. That's the part that doesn't work. It's not working.
I
She keeps
forgive, they
forgiving.
hurt me again. I forgive, they hurt me again. What is this?
Exactly. There is one solution that comes from the 12-step group. And I say that with full conviction, personal conviction, that 12-step there were 12 steps. They were written in 20 minutes in 1935, a full 30 years before the Course in Miracles was given. I believe now, in retrospect, that the same author dictated those 12 steps in the 20 minutes to a man who had never been able to stop drinking alcohol. And that particular issue there, if you can't get past that problem, you have to look inside yourself and find out what in you, what are you still resenting? Chances are you resent that person because you can't get them out of your head. You've tried to forgive them, they won't go. That means there's some character defect of some sort, a character defect. Not a terrible thing necessarily, it isn't. It's usually something, you're lazy. You're a perfectionist on the other side of that. And little things like that can stop the person's spiritual continuation. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to that point when we not
What you're
only
trying
know
to say,
there's a
I just
God.
want to understand that last part. So what you're trying to say is
Sure.
that in the Linda example, that she keeps forgiving somebody and the situation still keeps appearing in her life, it's
Right.
because she's forgiven the person outside, but she hasn't forgive herself for the thing that experience has been showing her. Is that what you're saying?
Not yes, but it's
Uh,
not necessarily even linked to that
it perhaps in
directly.
Linda's case, it's showing her that she needs to set a boundary for somebody in a particular way. It's showing you an opportunity in yourself to take responsibility for the problem so you can solve it. Takes the power out of the other person and gives you the ability to change your perspective. Did I help that, Dad?
Yes, and in a very good way. It's the way that God or you, your higher self, reminds you that you have something to fix.
Exactly, within
And
you.
those are
Within you.
fixable. And the next step, which would be step 5, it says, sit down and talk about this with someone else. Don't even trust yourself that you have nailed it, because you have to have someone you trust. Trust is the most critical thing. You can sit down and trust that someone else understands that you are just a human being, you're doing the best you can, but this particular thing you were taught wrong, or you experienced something that forced this way of acting out on people that wasn't very helpful. And that is the thing to uncover. Once you uncover that, everything else falls into place. You won't keep remembering this because you will get yourself out of the way. The only thing you can really fix, for sure, is yourself. And there is a way to do that. It is always given you. In fact, in the real world of being awake, the real thing, it always comes to mind what is the next thing for you to work on. So we would get away from forgiving this person, but they keep doing it. Forgiving this person, but they keep doing it. To realizing that just forgiving is not the whole deal. That's only half of it. The other side of the coin, maybe. So I just wanted to throw that out for anyone who is
Yeah,
not
you
familiar
won't be
with that.
able to move forward with another lesson unless you truly learn the lesson that that experience brings you. Because in that sense, the forgiveness that, for example, Linda has been doing is some sort of physical level, or a forgiveness in the level of the form that is not like the true forgiveness. The true forgiveness is at the level of the spirit, because the spirit is trying to really take all the barriers down for you to realize what you truly are. And unless you unwrap that experience, like that beautiful gift that God is giving you for some reason, because you are just a learner, then you won't be able to move forward. And in fact, she can keep forgiving that person and maybe start to do the work within herself around these concepts. And maybe that person will not be like that anymore. But if she's really not doing the work within herself, she will then probably find another person that will give her the kind of same content, if that's the lesson she needs to learn. So I totally relate to what you're saying, Bob, because I mean, all the experience we have in conflicts points out to one single issue, that is the tiny mad idea. But as the tiny mad idea wants to survive, it will give you different forms of one single lesson. So you have to just really be patient with yourself and take all those conflicts like in a separate way, supposedly, but then you moving forward with these experiences and with these practices, with the Course in Miracles, you will find out that every one and each of them are pointed out at your relationship with the concept that you are the Son of God and that we are all one. But you need to do the process so you can
Yep.
find that for yourself. Because
What's
somebody
funny
will tell you,
is,
but it's only through experience that you can realize that.
that the 12th step, the last step in course in of the 12 steps for Alcoholics Anonymous, which, as all of you know, has been reinterpreted for many other types of addictions. The other day we were talking about temptations. Well, alcohol is a really self-destructive temptation. So what happens at the 12th step? After you've gone through this process, you've cleaned up your act, so to speak, you've made amends to other people, whether they like you or not is irrelevant, but you've made your amends. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others. So what that means is, now it's your turn to help another person experience the miracle. And the one basic miracle of all starts everything else is, there is a God. and he's here to take care of you. But you have to get connected. The connection is simply waking up. So that's what we're all searching for. That's the first step. And from that point on, a lot of this stuff gets easier. If we fight the idea that there really isn't a God because he's never proven it to me, what do? Well, you give him a chance. And he'll do that too. He will help you wake up. So I don't want to keep saying it the same way over and over. I think you
Tom
got the
wants to say
idea that I wanted
something.
to
What Tom has
mention.
his microphone open, so let's
Thank you.
see what Tom has to say.
Oh, well, one of the things we need to realize is that our purpose here, and Jesus says it in the Course in Miracles, that he can't control our fear. Our job is to control our own fear. And so any situation that you're involved in, your first task in front of you is to minimize your fear. In the situation where Maggie May was talking about, relationships and family and stuff like that, uh, you have to realize that uh, your goal is to minimize your fear. So, like in my earlier youth, the way I coped, and I didn't necessarily ask the Holy Spirit back then, but my coping strategy to minimize my fear was what I call the strategy of active avoidance, which meant that wherever my father was, I wanted to get out of the vicinity of him. So if he entered the room, I'd leave the room. If he was in the room, I wouldn't enter the room. Active avoidance, because that was my strategy that would minimize my fear, so that I wouldn't have to worry about any explosion getting, you know, uh, just out of the vicinity. You weren't in harm's way. Uh, but that was a coping strategy, and that was what I had to do to minimize my fear at that time in space in my life where I was. Eventually, perhaps you grow and learn to deal with different coping strategies, and uh, later on, like in adult life, you would maybe still stay in the room, but uh, eventually you evolve. But what I wanted to get back to was this idea of, and Bob mentioned it up with his daughter, forgiving somebody and they keep on reappearing. What you have to do in any situation that keeps on reappearing in your life, what I'm going to call it, uh, and I'll use this term in quotes, negative creation cycle, otherwise an experience that you don't want to have, is that there has to be a learning lesson in it for you, because the universe, cosmic consciousness, keeps on throwing that back up at you. So somewhere you're missing a learning lesson. So you might want to ask yourself this question: what would I have to believe about myself to call that into my awareness? Uh, why am I always running into that? I've still got an energy circuit going with some belief that's trying to teach me some lesson. Um, One of the things where the situation is where the person will not go away, you forgive them and they keep on coming back, might be, I'll just throw this out, is you need to be aware of possibly two things. One is we, in this world of time and space, we need, I use this term, bad actors to play roles to push our buttons. Okay. So one of the things uh, that we also need to realize is these so-called bad actors are perhaps, well, they're not perhaps, they're on their own perfect path. They're on their own perfect path to reawakening. And when we keep on calling or having that experience repeat, one lesson might be that we still believe that we need to fix, change, control, protect, or impress them for some reason. That we're basically saying that there's something wrong with their own perfect path. And if we can allow people to be on their own perfect path, we can also give ourselves permission to not allow their own perfect path to intercept our own perfect path. So we can give them the permission to leave, or we can give yourself permission to leave that situation. When you forgive others and yourself, you give yourself, you unlock the doors, that doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you've forgiven will necessarily want to leave their prison. Their own perfect path might say that they need to stay in prison for another 50 lifetimes or 5 minutes. Uh, if you don't slip into judgment and you just allow them to be and say, wow, what a great creation. What a great creator you are. You're creating all this turmoil. But I give myself permission to, because I've unlocked the doors, to leave. And I can leave and exit without making them bad, wrong, or indifferent. I just say, yeah, they're on their own perfect path. And I no longer have to fix them. And I no longer have an obligation to judge them and say, I need to change them, correct them. You just say, wow, I honor their path, but now I have learned the lesson that maybe I don't want to attract that type of person, and you give yourself permission to leave. A lot of spiritual types turn out to be in a living hell because they refuse to give themselves permission to forgive themselves for what they perceive as their duty or obligation to fix, change, control, protect, or impress somebody else because they've been told that they love them. How do you help? How do you save somebody or solve their problem when their problem is they don't want it solved or they don't want it solved by you? You can't. So just love them and say, yeah, you're fine. You're on your own perfect path. And unfortunately or fortunately, uh, our paths are diverging. And now I am we're giving you permission to go on your own way. And we just had a fork in the road. And if the lesson still had a learning lesson for you, you don't have to worry because on that different fork that you took, because you bring yourself on, the only thing on that new fork is you. If you start attracting that same type of experience, then that means that there was really a lesson that you still have to learn and forgive yourself and change one of your beliefs about yourself and what you're worthy of. And it might be that you're not worthy of having a good life, or you have to earn it, whatever it might be. But the universe will tell you if uh, it was just a time to let them go on their own perfect path, or if you still had some learning lesson. You don't have to worry because there's going to be a new actor coming in that'll fill that role until you learn. So thank you.
The
Thanks,
opposite of
Tom.
fear is love. And I remember hearing that, if we have faith, no matter who the situation is, it works out, right? Just hold your breath and move through it. But, there's certain situations that you hold your breath and maybe you shouldn't be going through those situations, right? And, for me, it's, does that situation or person or event support life, support love, or does it not? And, does it contain truth or does it not? Am I physically safe is one way of looking at it, but I'm finding emotional safety, or people that try to control with shame and anger and all of that, as opposed to sitting down and having an honest conversation. You do have a responsibility to form your life and to choose the ones around you to a degree. And I heard some fear about someone's living situation earlier, and I just wanted to say that it's a really difficult time right now for a lot of relationships, and that um, listening to your inner self has never been more important, in my opinion. And I'll even go there farther out on a limb. I think with everything going on in the world and where we're all at, that society as a whole is more afraid, you know, um, than ever. And we also have a bit of a responsibility, knowing what we know here, to be as supportive and loving to those others that are feeling the fear. Um, and anyway, thanks. Have a good Sunday.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you, man. Well, Maggie, I hope you got your dime's worth. And I know I did today. And it's about 8:42 over here on the East Coast. We start up at 6:37 every single morning. I'll be here tomorrow to read tomorrow's lesson, and the notes will be on 66. My happiness and my function are one. Did I get that right? Yes, I did.
Yeah,
Today is my only function. What? Go ahead, Pop.
Yeah, yesterday was 64, and you played Paul McCartney singing When I'm 64. Tomorrow we're going to be on Route 66.
Thank you. That will be our theme song. I need to go set up some appointments so that they're up there. If you guys want, the easiest way to get alerted is to tap on my face, Lovely's face, and hit the little bell next to me. And that will alert you when I start talking. And actually, the other Lee, the one playing music over there, that one is kind of my room Lee. So he's the one that I use to play the music in the back, and it's literally going to be this room, and he will never talk in anything else. So the lovely one is my phone, and that's where I talk through, and we send this out to our Facebook group. So Adriana, would you actually, I could put the Facebook group up there for us, and then
No, let me do it. You keep talking. I can do it.
okay, and so out at the Facebook group, we've been sending our recordings out there since July 4th, when Dad and I started doing this room regularly with George. And we decided, after we'd made it the whole way through the text last year at about middle of December, that we were going to go ahead and jump in and do the lessons. And of course, today we're 65 days into this year. And so far, we haven't missed any. Seems to be doing okay. I really appreciate you all being here. This is a great way to start my day. Help me find the love of my life. Help me figure out how to get out from where I had stuck myself, and still, for some reason, thought yesterday I was still stuck, but I'm free. We're all free. Just to be as God created me. So, onward and upward today. And if you have to leave, you can. Probably hang out here for a little bit longer. But I hope you all guys have a great day. And I'll see you tomorrow.
We are just a little bit of sunlight to read this blue book, right?
Well, create a great day. Gotta leave. Namaste. Bye now.
Namaste, Tom. Thank you. Thank you. I will not say thank you enough, but you know I love you. So thank you very much, Tom, for all that you did with that.
Ditto. Tom is the author of A Course in Miracle Workbook for Dummies, the one that I read from, and he's a scholar of this stuff, and helps me change my perspective, and so I definitely appreciate his perspective. Adriana's showing me a better reflection of myself than I ever saw before, and my dad is talking about something else entirely. I think he looks like he's somewhere else entirely, but as a guidance, he's been amazing too. So, to my brother Sean, thank you for all of your help, and I love you all.
You're welcome. Oh, so anybody have any cool plans for this Sunday? Sitting back, relaxing, enjoying the weather.
I
I
just
have
got invited to go to a play in downtown Boston by somebody who was in
Wow,
my ACIM group, and I'd never heard of it before. It's called What the Constitution Means to Me. So
that's pretty awesome.
I'll let you know. It's gotta
That's
find out.
nice.
I know. It just happened like 5 minutes ago.
Hmm.
That's super cool. What a great gift for a Sunday.
It
It is.
kind of is. All right, here it is. It says, following a smash run on Broadway, Heidi Schreck's timely, hilarious, deeply felt play breathes new life into our country's most important document. 15-year-old Heidi Schreck paid her college tuition by speaking in debate competitions across the country. Now, older, she tells the story of 4 generations of extraordinary women in her family whose lives were shaped by the Constitution. The New York Times hails it as the most important new play of the season, and Time Out New York says it's something every citizen must see. All right. Sounds like it's going to be pretty awesome.
I
Well,
would
Time
love to
Out New
go
York
there
says it.
with you. Yeah.
Yeah. In downtown Boston today. So off Broadway for me, but more convenient. So, how about you, man? Any good plans? Or anybody else?
Well, I have a beautiful more Sunday morning. I will have a beautiful Sunday morning at the at Walmart. I have to do groceries, so that's my beautiful Sunday plan. Well,
Okay. Well, that certainly is better than nothing for sure. I hope you all have a nice, safe, relaxing Sunday. Tamara, you want to tell us what's going on, or Maggie, or anybody else who wants to come up and share? This is the overtime, so we don't have to
I just
worry.
want to say thank you to everybody for all of your words of wisdom. I'm just ever grateful to all of you, and I can't wait to come back and share more with you next time.
You're so welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for stepping up and sharing. I really appreciate it. I know
Most
sometimes,
definitely.
yeah, you gave us a good kind of North Star to follow, and that's always helpful.